Good morning. Pope Francis spends the first of his 5-day visit to Korea speaking with President Park and delivering a message of peace.
To our heart.
While the Pope calls for peace and reconciliation, North Korea fires a series of rockets into the East Sea and confirms the list of delegates for the Asian Games. A music video involving over 20 A-list celebrities called Koinonia, the Greek word for fellowship, celebrating the papal visit. And a special dish for a special occasion, Matthew Chung has a crowd favorite on Liberation Day Friday, August 15th, 2014.
From Arirang News, this is Korea Today.
And good morning. Thank you for joining us on this Friday morning. I'm Kim Young alongside Jin Ju and Kim Min-jung.
Good morning, everyone. You're joining us on the National Liberation Day here in Korea. But with all due respect, the Pope has kind of stolen the thunder. The focus is pretty much on the Pope, who is now in Korea. It's really exciting to think that he might be watching us from his home in Seoul, right?
And the song that you're hearing now is the official song dedicated to the papal visit. It's titled Koinonia, and it's a Greek word meaning communion and joint participation.
And we will be hearing more about that later on Korea Today. And as Min-jung, you have mentioned, the Pope has stolen that thunder, so we will jump to our top headline for this morning. As the nation welcomed the papal visit, Pope Francis called for efforts to develop peace on the Korean peninsula. Following talks with President Park Geun-hye at the presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae, Pope Francis said the road to peace is a challenge, but reconciliatory efforts and stability are the only sure path to peace.
Peace is not simply the absence of war, but the work of justice. And justice, as a virtue, calls for the discipline of forbearance.
President Park called on North Korea to halt nuclear arms development and work towards achieving unification and world peace.
세계 평화와 인류 번영에도 기여하는 통일을 이루려면 수많은 생명을 한꺼번에 앗아갈 수 있는 북한의 핵무기 개발부터 중단되어야 할 것입니다.
Of new generations.
The Pope did not dine with the president despite diplomatic protocol, saying he wishes to dine on regular food just like any other person, according to the preparatory committee spokesperson. Pope Francis will spend Friday, Liberation Day in Korea, and Assumption Day on the Catholic calendar, celebrating a mass at the Daejeon World Cup Stadium, where tens of thousands, including family members of the Sewol ferry victims, are expected to attend.
While South Korea was busy welcoming the Pope, North Korea had a message of its own. Starting from an hour before the Pope's arrival in South Korea, Pyongyang test-fired 5 missiles into the East Sea. The communist state has a history of launching rockets prior to landmark events in the South, the latest one ahead of Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to Seoul. And despite its recent threat to pull out of the Asian Games, organizers said Thursday that North Korea has submitted a list of athletes and other participants for the upcoming Games. The 352-member delegation includes 150, that is, athletes in 14 sport disciplines. Inter-Korean government negotiations over hosting the North Korean delegation are now in limbo after the North walked out over disagreements on the logistics of the team's stay in the South.
And also on Thursday, Korea's central bank lowered the nation's key interest rate for the first time in 15 months to the lowest in nearly 4 years. Responding to the government's plea for support of its economic stimulus plan, the key interest rate was shaved 0.25 percentage points to 2.25%, matching market expectations. Analysts predicted the central bank would cut the rate by a quarter of a percentage point, but some add that for the economy to actually feel the impact of a rate cut, it needs to be lowered by an added 0.5 percentage points. The move is in line with the government's aggressive stimulus measures to spur sluggish domestic consumption brought on by the Sewol ferry disaster in April and weak business and consumer sentiment.
One of the highlights of Pope Francis's second day in Korea will be officiating the Mass of the Assumption of Mary at Daejeon World Cup Stadium. And Arirang News' Park Ji-won is currently at the venue where final touches are being made to celebrate the Holy Mass. Good morning, Ji-won. How are things looking over there?
Hi, Jinju. It's only 7 in the morning, but as you can see here, the stadium is already almost full with tens of thousands of Catholics. Well, the Holy Father is set to arrive at the stadium at around 10 a.m. today. It will have an open car parade. We should understand that the Mass is the most important ritual for Catholic faithfuls, and this one in particular holds extra meaning because it will be the first Mass the Holy Father will celebrate with the Korean public.
I see a lot of people behind you. And Ji-won, on the sidelines of the Mass this morning, the Pope is also expected to meet with families of the victims of April's Seoul ferry disaster. Tell us more about that.
Yes, Jinju, according to Catholic Church in Korea, the Pope will meet about 10 family members of the victims of the Seoul ferry disaster before the Mass starts. And he said previously many times that he feels deeply sad about the ferry disaster, and he wishes that it could be a chance through which Korea could become newly reborn spiritually and ethically. But considering Pope Francis has always emphasized social justice and concerns for the marginalized, it's expected that he will deliver a message of consolation healing for those in suffering in his sermon during the Mass.
Ji-won, and could you give us a rundown of the Pope's schedule today after the Mass ends? It seems that he has a very packed schedule ahead of him today.
Well, after the Mass, the Pope will hold a luncheon with 17 youth representatives from diverse Asian countries. Well, Korean pop star Boa, who is also a Catholic, is also expected to be there. Well, after lunch, the Pope will head to Seolme Sanctuary, which is the birthplace of St. Andrew Kim Dae-gon, the first Korean priest. He died at the age of 25, just a year after he became a priest, during a religious persecution hundreds of years ago in Korea. There, the Pope will meet thousands of youth from 29 Asian countries who are in Korea to attend the 6th Asian Youth Day. During the meeting, no Mass will be held, but rather festive events like performances will be presented to the Pope. But the Pope will then deliver a message to the youth, after which they will be given the opportunity to ask questions to the Holy Father in English. Well, when that program is ended, the Holy Father will return to Seoul. Back to you, Jinju.
All right, Ji-won, thank you for that update. That was our Park Ji-won reporting live from Daejeon on the Pope's itinerary of his second day in Korea. Happy Friday morning. It's time to run through the front pages of your newspapers. Now this morning, every paper begins with precious words coming from Pope Francis. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of them. First up is 중앙일보. And it's this top story here. The headline reads, Korea struggles with political division, communicate with each other. So communicate was the key word from yesterday's speech by the Holy Father regarding the political situation in Korea. And this is Pope Francis here in this image in a modest Kia sedan, the Soul, reflecting his request for a small vehicle. Now, he urged Koreans to come together, advising political and civic leaders to step up communication to work towards the common goal of tackling social issues, political divisions, and economic inequalities. And on 경향신문, the Pope consoled some of the families of the victims of the Seoul ferry disaster. The title says, "Peace is outcome of justice. My heart aches for the victims of Seoul ferry." And this is the pontiff upon his arrival at Seoul Air Base in the capital's southeastern suburbs yesterday morning, shaking hands with the family members of the victims from the Seoul tragedy who had gone to greet the Pope at the airport. Now, Pope Francis took a moment to offer them a few kind words. Now, also in his speech yesterday afternoon following talks with President Park Geun-hye, he said that peace is not simply the absence of war, but the work of justice. And over on 조선일보, some other words coming from the Pope again makes the top headline. It reads, "World is in earnest need of peace. on the Korean peninsula. Now, he said Korea's quest for peace is a cause close to all of our hearts, for it affects the stability of the entire area and indeed of our whole war-weary world. And we'll leave it at that with the gracious words coming from Pope Francis. Let's take a look at some of the other domestic issues. This one here below that top headline is regarding low-carbon cars. And the title says, fund system for low-carbon vehicles to be delayed by at least 2 years. Now, the government has decided to delay the implementation of a cooperation fund for low-carbon cars by at least 2 years in order to reduce the burden on local car makers. The fund was initially slated to go into effect this coming January 1st, but Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Strategy and Finance Choi Kyung-hwan made the decision following a closed-door meeting with the Minister of Trade, Industry and Energy, as well as the Minister of Environment. The cooperation fund for low-carbon cars involves added fees that would be slapped on buyers of vehicles emitting high carbon gases, while at the same time offering subsidies for those who decide to buy more environmentally friendly cars. And lastly, we'll take a look at the economy here. This one on the Korea Economic Daily, about how the economy may be revived through the Pope's visit. The header reads, Pope's visit stirs up increased demand for the economy. And as the sub-headline notes, millions of people are expected to come together during the Pope's visit here, especially in Gwanghwamun, where the beatification ceremony of 124 Korean martyrs will be taking place tomorrow. Now, with that, it looks like the domestic economy that had died down since the Seoul ferry disaster is looking to brighten up. For instance, restaurants near the Gwanghwamun area are being fully reserved now, and with the movement of such large crowds of people following the Pope around the country, the economic effect is estimated to reach up to $500 million. And that was a look at your newspaper headlines for this Friday. Wish you all a lovely weekend. And now coming up are the stock numbers from Thursday.
It is the National Liberation Day, also known as the Victory over Japan Day in other parts of the world. It's a national holiday here in Korea. So
that's
many
right.
people are out and about today.
That's right. And even to make it even more special, we had the papal visit, right? Yesterday, we had a little bit of sprinkling during the afternoon. Got me a little bit worried there, but we are going to get a check on today's weather conditions and the peak into the weekend weather conditions with Jeon Sung-cho.
Good morning to you, Sung-cho.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Yes, today is the 69th Korean Liberation Day, a public holiday here in the country. So a lot of people in Korea have already started their long weekend. We have overcast skies nationwide, and it's quite chilly outside at about 21 degrees Celsius. So I have my jacket on, as you can see. Mainly around the southern regions, they're facing currently heavy downpours at about 10 to 20 millimeters an hour. It'll mostly subside by midday, but there may be some patchy areas across the country receiving scattered showers. So, will it rain tomorrow? This is what everyone is concerned about, as thousands of people will gather here at the Gwanghwamun Square to watch the beatification ceremony by Pope Francis. Fortunately, no rain is in the forecast, but due to unstable weather conditions created by hot and cold air masses colliding in the upper atmosphere, it may rain, so maybe it's a good idea to carry your umbrella with you tomorrow. And with that, let's move on over to get a closer look at today's forecast. Today's temperatures are slightly warmer than yesterday. Seoul and Gwangju's midday highs are hitting 30 again, while Gangneung remains the coolest at 26 degrees Celsius. We will have nationwide rainfall again starting on Sunday night, and this rain will get heavier, pouring at about 30 millimeters an hour at times, and will continue on until Tuesday. This is all for me with the weather forecast. Back to you, Jinju.
And time now for a look through some of the global headlines we're following this morning. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the News Center. Good morning, Eunice.
Good morning, Jinju.
Now, new this morning, Iraq's embattled Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki has stepped down to be replaced by the successor.
Right, we knew support for Prime Minister Maliki was waning, to say the least, but this news still came as a surprise, as he had vowed to stay on as leader despite the mounting pressure, even filing a lawsuit against his challengers. But less than 2 hours ago, Prime Minister Maliki appeared on state TV and announced his resignation. He said he was withdrawing his bid for a third term and endorsing Prime Minister-designate Haider al-Abadi, who was appointed by Iraq's president to form a new government. Now, Abadi belongs to the same ruling Dawa party, but is viewed as a moderate Shiite who has a decent chance at improving ties with rival Sunnis. Meanwhile, on the raging battle against Islamic State militants in northern Iraq, U.S. President Barack Obama said U.S. airstrikes had broken the siege on Mount Sinjar and that he would conclude its humanitarian mission there. This comes as a small team of Marine Special Forces and U.S. aid members dispatched to the mountain had found most of the estimated tens of thousands of fleeing Kurds had already left, with about 5,000 remaining on that mountain.
And let's move on to Pope Francis. Even as he was on his way to Korea yesterday, there was a bit of diplomacy and history in the making on the chartered jet so-called Shepherd 1.
Right. A little known fact about these papal flights is that Vatican protocol calls for traveling pontiffs to send telegrams to the heads of state as he flies through their airspace. And as our Yoon-hee told you yesterday, Pope Francis flew directly through Chinese airspace to arrive in Seoul yesterday, and as he did, he became the first pope to send an air telegram to the Chinese leader. Now, this is significant because China has historically not had a very amicable relationship with the Vatican. In fact, the two sides haven't had diplomatic relations since 1951, when the Communist Party took over and set up its own church outside of the Pope's authority. Some also say that by being geographically close to China, the Vatican hopes to reach out to the estimated 12 million Chinese Catholics who, according to reports, were discouraged by Beijing to attend papal events in Seoul. So what did Pope Francis say on that telegram addressed to President Xi Jinping? He extended his best wishes to President Xi and his fellow citizens and invoked the divine blessings of peace and well-being upon the nation. China's foreign ministry responded in a fact statement saying it remained committed to improving ties. And with that, we'll wrap your look at the global headlines we're following this morning.
Still ahead on Korea Today, top celebrities in Korea come together to celebrate Pope Francis's visit to Korea. The song called Koinonia and its music video were dedicated to the Pope. We get some behind-the-scenes stories and details on the symbolic performance, so stay tuned.
Pope Francis is making headlines as he travels across the country. Today, he's scheduled to meet with Catholic youths in the city of Daejeon. For more insight into his trip, we're now joined by Father Donald O'Keefe, Regional Director of the Columban Fathers in Korea, a missions group that has been working in the country for the last 80 years. Good morning, Father. Thank you for joining us this morning. Now, the Pope is expected to attend the Asian Youth Day in Daejeon, where thousands of young Catholics are expected to attend from Asia, also in Korea. Why the emphasis on Catholic youths?
Well, this is the Asian Youth Meeting. You may recall that 2 years ago, there was the World Youth Meeting in Brazil, where the Pope went. And I think he found the experiencing there very, very enriching. And the impact on the youth, in fact, was something to be seen. But particularly Asia, like Asia is the continent with huge diversity. It's a continent at the moment with huge energy. It's where the major part of the world's population is living. And I think he sees it as an occasion, bring all these young people together and inspire them to seek what is common, you know, in their diverse heritages, so they can work together for a more human world, you know.
Does this have anything to do with the decreasing number of Catholic followers to just boost maybe some breathe life into that demographics maybe too?
Well, some people may interpret it as that, but I think the Pope has very little interest in statistics. He said recently the whole thing of proselytizing is not the way to go. He says, you know, like the way for religions to go is to attract by witness. So from his perspective, if people live the message and people are attracted, that's good. And if they're not, that's fine too.
Okay.
His basic tenet is live and let live.
Live and let live.
Yes,
That is
yeah.
one message right there.
Well,
now,
yes.
one of the highlights of his trip this time is, of course, the beatification of Korean martyrs that is expected to take place on Saturday. For us regular folks, we're not very familiar with the process of beatification. Tell us in maybe just in simple words what that process really involves, and also the significance of this event being held right here in Korea.
The word martyr, I think, basically means witness, people who have given their lives for the faith. Now, a thing of particular interest, I think, to Francis, since he's become Pope, is the practice of Christianity rather than the theological, you know, niceties. And everything he has done so far has been, you know, very spontaneous, practical gestures, but this is what it's about. So for him to come to Korea, and he's highlighting the fact that in Korean tradition, there were so many people actually lived the message and gave their lives for it, you know? I think it's that, living it and giving their lives. It's not so much he's focusing on the past, but he's holding this up as an example to the church today here. You have this heritage, do the same in your generation, give your life. You may not have to give it by spilling blood, but, you know, in the way you live with your neighbor, in the way you live with your family, in the way you treat people who are close to you, and the way you're concerned for the poor in society. Give your life, live your values. Now, I think that's the core of his message.
The Pope is expected to meet with the underprivileged, the less fortunate, as well as the victims and the surviving families of the Sewol-ho ferry tragedy that killed some 300 people right here in Korea. Now, what kind of message does this deliver to the people, and what is the Pope trying to deliver?
I think the message of the Pope, you know, from the very beginning is this thing of reaching out, being concerned with people, loving people. And I think his reading of like that accident, the Sewol ferry accident.
Right.
I mean, I think all analysis is all pointing to the same thing, is that people were put second. What was the most important item was profit, you know, and rules were ignored, regulations were not observed. And the lives of the young people, you know, on that ferry were absolutely, you know, they were sacrificed basically to the god of Mammon. And like one of his first public messages, writings, Pope Francis has actually talked about like the new god of the marketplace, where young people and people in all countries are being sacrificed. So I think his message is going to be reflect on this, put people first.
Yes, this Sewol-ho incident has been a politically very divisive issue, and not only the Sewol-ho ferry incident, but a lot of ideologies are clashing, and lots of division and unrest in this country at the moment. Now, do you think the Pope's visit will serve as an opportunity to bring the country together and look at each other and try to forgive and love each other a little more?
I would hope so. I think like the message of Francis, which I think is the message of the gospel, is, you know, like that the person is sacred. And people, all people, they're infinitely more important than any political ideology, than any economic system, than any religion, for that matter. So just to see the other person as someone unique and sacred, and work from that.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Father, for joining us and giving us this insight that was really helpful.
No,
thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Now, the entire nation is all excited about the Pope's visit and focused on his stay here, but there are also a lot of festivities going on commemorating Korea's 69th Liberation Day today.
And that's right, starting with that official commemorative ceremony attended by President Park Geun-hye this morning. Festivals will be held both across the nation and overseas. For more, let's go over to our Seo Mi-sorang at the Digital Room.
Good morning, Mi-sorang.
Good morning, guys. Happy Liberation Day. Let me show you what kind of activities are involved in these events. A lot of them will include a very formal element called 국민의례, which includes saluting the national flag 태극기, singing the national anthem, and holding a minute of silence to honor the patriotic martyrs. After this, there's usually some sort of performance or an exhibition related to Korean culture, such as this taekwondo performance that you see here. But in the festivals held overseas, there will be more hands-on activities so that the locals, as well as the second and third generation Koreans, can learn more about the Korean culture. So that was Liberation Day, but of course, the other issue trending online has to do with the current papal visit and the history of Catholicism right here in Korea. The Yakhyun Catholic Church that I'm going to show you now is an important part of that history. Yakhyun Catholic Church. If you've never heard of this church before, you're not the only one. Although it's not very widely known, it was actually the very first Catholic church here in Korea. And about 20 years ago, the church, embracing its role in Korean Catholicism, built this Hosomun Martyrs Memorial Center within its grounds to honor those who paved the way. Now moving on, as was widely speculated prior to his visit, Pope Francis did in fact ride the Kia Soul and generated quite the buzz online. So that's the Kia Soul that you see there. The compact car isn't bulletproofed, and as you can see, the windows aren't tinted at all, and they're rolled down. I think this picture speaks volumes about, one, his frugality, and two, his willingness to break traditional barriers to be closer to the people. Meanwhile, LA Dodgers starter Ryu Hyun-jin strained his right gluteus muscle and was forced to make a sixth-inning departure in last night's game against the Atlanta Braves. And two North Korean men, one in his 50s and another in his 20s, swam across the West Sea border seeking to defect to South Korea. Now, the responses online to this, there were some who questioned and speculated about their true motives, but by and large, most welcomed them with open arms. And with that, it's a wrap for today's edition of your Daily News Sum Up.
You know, it's sometimes difficult to think of the Pope as a real person with a real name.
Right.
But did you know that when he was born, he was given the name Jorge Mario Bergoglio? Right? We've been practicing this all morning, and he has 4 siblings. And there is so much more to the Holy Father than meets the eye. And our Im Yoon-hee joins us to tell us more about the Pope. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Good morning. So we're all so glad the Pope landed safely yesterday. And after meeting the President, the Pope has a full schedule set for the rest of his stay. But who is this Pope that has been named by Time as a 2013 Person of the Year? Now, he's a man who many attribute as being the cause for growth across churches everywhere, and I think there's a reason for that. So Pope Francis comes across as one of the most approachable popes to take the seat. And here are a few fun facts that may or may not have known. Now, obviously, the Pope has a superb education in theology, but did you know that Pope Francis also has a master's degree in chemistry from the University of Buenos Aires? Now, while he was young, he worked as a teacher of theology, philosophy, literature, and psychology as well.
Jack of all trades, huh?
Right, he did study quite a bit. Right, so he also, is very capable. It's interesting for him to have that kind of background, but, he also would have to pay for his schooling as well. So here's something interesting. It happens to be that if you visited a bar in Argentina maybe 50 years back, you might have been turned away from the door by a young Pope Francis because before he became a Jesuit, he worked as a bouncer in Buenos Aires at a bar to help pay for his studies. So he was also employed as a janitor at one point as well. So he was very determined to get through his schooling.
A janitor and a bouncer.
Bouncer, hard to believe.
Bouncer. Can you
Bouncer.
imagine?
Do I know this definition correctly?
Well, yes, yeah, we're
Bouncer.
talking about the bar bouncers that'll, kick people out and screen people at the door.
Really hard to believe.
Wow.
Interesting.
Jack of all trades, like you said earlier. So who also says the Pope can't dance? Now, Pope Francis loved the tango in his younger days, and he said he used to frequently go dancing with his friends. So he's a very fun Pope, obviously.
I'm sure he preferred the Argentine tango to all the other
From Argentina.
dance.
Exactly. So, Young, I know you're a fan of motorcycles, especially the Harley Davidson. So did you know Pope Francis also owned a Harley Davidson motorcycle? He was actually given one when he gave blessings to hundreds of Harley Davidson owners and their bikes in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican. And although he never rode it, he did auction it, and he did go to donate the proceeds to the homeless.
And that really does sound like something that he would do, donate it to the homeless, right?
What does it feel like to have something in common with the Pope?
I feel no
Bless
holier
him.
than ever. I feel the same, actually, right? But I mean, a bouncer, Harley Davidson, I'm thinking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, maybe the Terminator.
Very interesting facts about the Pope, right? So Pope Francis also, his humility is nothing new, but it's still shocking to hear the extent of his humbleness. So while Archbishop of Buenos Aires, he rode the bus, he lived in a simple apartment, and he also flew economy. And he even chose his papal name based on the humility and austerity associated with St. Francis of Assisi.
And really one of the reasons he became so popular is humbleness and his humility. And to see him in that little car yesterday was really a moment of truth, I think, for a lot of Koreans who like big cars and to show off their cars, right?
Right. So he really is popular with the crowds, with basically everybody of all ages. But if you think papal demands are, a lot, think about Pope Francis. He actually, when he was 21, he was struck with pneumonia, and he has only one lung. And so he is doing all of this, riding the Harley, or, buying a Harley Davidson, getting a Harley Davidson. He's, being a bouncer, all with just one lung.
With
wow,
one
that's
lung.
something
It's a
brand
miracle
new.
in
Wow.
itself.
A man in his 70s, and he's very healthy still.
All right, sounds great, and we're hoping that he will stay healthy for a long time to come. All right, Uni, thank you so much for that report.
Always a pleasure.
All right, stay with us on Korea Today because we are going to be dealing with a crowd favorite. I know you love it. I know you love it. Everyone loves it because you just get a bunch of leftovers and you can put it together and make this dish.
Oh, so good.
That's
too.
right. Bibimbap. Matthew Chung is going to be joining us later on our program, and he's going to make a special type of bibimbap for us. Now, we're celebrating the Liberation Day today. Now, what better way to mark the occasion other than with great food? So wait for that coming up on Korea Today.
So we learned a lot of interesting facts about the Pope, but did you also know that he's a fan of sports
So
too?
there's a lot of things
Really?
we don't know about the pontiff, right? So he is a huge fan of sports. And to talk about all that and much more, we're joined by SJ Lee this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, guys. Obviously, I think a lot of our viewers would be like, what's just SJ doing there talking about sports and the Pope, right? But just like you guys mentioned, the Pope happens to be a huge fan of sports. And in fact, a lot of people might think growing up in Argentina, he might have played football, but he's actually a basketball player,
Basketball.
right? So that's something interesting there as well. So, I mean, we talk about all this different stuff and him being a bar bouncer. So not only was he athletic, he was also very strong. So
Tough guy.
definitely a very athletic Pope as well. But here's the big question. Which team does the Pope support? Well, looks like it's none other than San Lorenzo in
There he
Argentina's
is.
Premier Division, a team that actually the Pope has actually supported all his life. And, he's talked about how he and his father used to go to the matches all the time as a kid. And what's interesting about this team is that the team's nickname is actually Los Santos. And if you're not too good with Spanish, just like me, it means the Saints. So quite fitting there as well, right? So the team won the Argentinian Championship last season and had the privilege to celebrate that with the Pope, as well as Pope Francis actually invited the team to the Vatican also to celebrate his birthday. They asked him what he wanted to do for his birthday. He said, I want my team to visit me in the Vatican. So definitely a huge fan of San Lorenzo.
So he must have been really excited about the Brazil World Cup, which took place a couple of months ago.
Right, not too long ago, right? And obviously because Argentina did so well at the World Cup, except for the fact that they did lose, of course, to Germany. But here's an interesting thing. You know, what he said was during the World Cup that he's not going to pray that Argentina wins the World Cup because he thinks then it's just not going to be fair.
Right? Religion and sports. His prayer is so strong.
Right. That's right. That's exactly what he said. He's like, I think it's going to be an unfair advantage if God's on my side. You know? So he didn't pray, but I thought, Argentina kind of needed that prayer since Germany did end up praying. And interestingly enough, the Pope before him, Pope Benedict, happens to be German. So a lot of people had different things to say. The battle of the prayer in the World Cup. But either way, once the World Cup did happen, a lot of the fans actually had an interesting way to kind of cheer on the national team as well. Basically, what happened was some of these fans were even wearing the Pope's outfit and wearing the mask as well. But aside from all that, Pope Francis also made sure that there was a message to be delivered during the big tournament, as well as he made a video message stating that sports is not only a form of entertainment, but also a tool to communicate the values that promote the good of the human person and to help build a more peaceful and fraternal coexistence. So, we always talk about how, we think sports and politics should be very
sports
separate.
Diplomacy, right?
Right, exactly. So, definitely a message to be delivered to all the people out there in the world as well.
Well, Pope Francis, definitely a man of God, a man of sports, and also a very fair man. He will not pray for the team that he's rooting for.
Exactly.
I would have.
I would have been very tempted to do so, right? But he was very fair.
What if he did pray for Argentina?
Well, then maybe they would
have won, for sure.
Exactly.
Thank you, SJ.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And moving on to some entertainment news, K-pop idol stars who have recently made their debut are already going a buzz overseas and making to the top of music charts in other countries. And for more, we're now joined by Denny Hong in the studio. Good morning, Denny.
Good morning, Denny.
Good morning. As you were mentioning, yes, we're going to be looking at some stories related to some of the newer idol groups that have come out, how their performances are going and being received, as well as what's the more established groups, how they are doing overseas, and even a movie review. I think we know which one we're talking about, Roaring Currents. It's a great movie that recently came out. So we're going to be talking about these stories and seeing what's up in entertainment for this past week. YG Entertainment's newest boy band, Winner, has climbed up iTunes charts to nab first spot in 4 places: Hong Kong, Indonesia, Singapore, and Taiwan, with its debut album 2014 SS. Not only that, in 5 other countries, including Brunei, Cambodia, and Malaysia, it grabbed 2nd place, and in 19 other countries, like the US and those in Europe, it entered the top 50. SM's new girl group, Red Velvet's music video for Happiness has claimed first place on China's video website Iki in the weekly Korean language category. Also in 5 other spots in Asia, Taiwan, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Hong Kong, the song broke into the top 10 on the iTunes single chart, proving they're not simply new to the stage. U.S. entertainment magazine Variety put the spotlight on Korea's recent blockbuster Roaring Currents and its popularity that broke through the 10 million mark in ticket sales. This weekly said that it was the 12th movie in Korea to achieve that feat and speculated it would surpass the popularity of Hollywood's Avatar and Korea-made The Host. With this, the magazine projected the history-based movie would set new records in the country. Go Group 2NE1's most popular song, I Am the Best, has been handpicked to be the song running for Microsoft's newest commercial. The company said the song's lyrics, oozing with confidence and an upbeat rhythm, are perfect for its corporate image. The new advertisement has been used since this Monday for its newest product, and it will run on television for 6 months and online and other media for a year.
Wow.
Lots of news there. But in keeping with the Pope's visit,
Yes.
there's a song dedicated to the Pope and to the Pope himself. And
Exactly.
only to the
We're
Pope.
talking about koinonia, which, as we mentioned before, is in reference to the Greek, which means communion or fellowship. And a lot of times it's also like combination with the Eucharist, which is the breaking of bread, the Lord's Supper. And so because it's a shared activity with a lot of people around the world, that is something that is a fellowship activity in the spiritual sense. And so along with that, there is, of course, a lot of celebrities that came together last month to dedicate a song and to perform together. So we're going to take a look at this story. The song Koinonia was written specifically to welcome Pope Francis to the country, bringing together late last month the voices of some 30 celebrities, such as actor An Sang-hee, Kim Han-eul, Kim Tae-hee, and Kim Woo-bin.
Very familiar faces there. All A-listers too.
Right.
뜻깊은 노래에 함께 하게 돼서 굉장히 영광이고요.
We had all these top celebrities, but not one complained about coming on site at midnight or working late into the night. Everyone thought of it as a great honor, so we were able to work together in a relaxed setting.
The album Koinonia, A Present for All, is dedicated to Pope Francis, and just as it suggests in the title, it is not only a warm welcome from the country, but also a message of hope for the public.
It's not a song to show off the scale of things or our personal talent. So I think it felt more like I was quietly expressing my heartfelt emotions.
With so many top stars gathered in one spot, there was a lot to see, and the atmosphere on site was lively and full of enthusiasm. The stars taking part also fully enjoyed the experience, enjoying their newly found companionship.
탑으로 올려보실 수 있어요?
들어보실래요?
In the beginning, everyone was busy trying to memorize the song, so we had awkward moments. But in the end, it felt like a song we had all written ourselves. It was fun.
It's not only in Korea where songs and videos from other countries dedicated to the Pope have made headlines. Global football superstar Lionel Messi put on a stellar performance for Pope Francis during his visit to his home country of Argentina. He took part in an interfaith charity match dedicated to the Pope.
And gave the jersey too.
I want one. Now, there's also the controversial example of Madonna, who dedicated her song Like a Virgin to Pope Benedict XVI in 2008. Although it did draw a lot of attention, it's hard to tell how the rather provocative performance was received by the Vatican. But even so, it's rare for so many top stars of one country to work together to welcome the visiting pontiff, which is why more people from Korea and abroad have shown interest.
The Vatican showed a lot of interest in this project, so when the Pope comes, they'll show the video to him and send a copy to the Vatican as well. We'll be running the music video, clips from behind the scenes, and past traces of the Pope's achievements for people waiting during the various papal events.
During Pope Francis's visit, world-renowned opera singer Jo Soo-mi, pianist Baek Geun-woo, legendary singer In Soon-hee, and many other artists will hold performances for the Pope. A warm spirit of collaboration between top celebrities has produced the song Koinonia, and the Song of Harmony will ring out across various venues in the country during his visit.
really heartwarming to see all these top celebrities coming together for this one meaningful project. And I heard that they donated their talents for free this time.
That's right. In this case, many people were asked, actually, and there were those who could not make the production event, but they asked if they could be on the voice recording of it later when there is more free time. But also those that were able to make the production of it in the choral formation, they donated their time for free. Obviously, it's something that they wanted to do more as a blessing towards the papal visit as opposed to something monetarily gained. And so I think that's a really great message as well, too.
And the song itself is really warm and touching. I think
it's a wonderful melody.
And the lyrics are great, too.
There's a lyric in there. It says, "I want to give you my prayers, a prayer of love and green seedlings." Now, this is, again, because it's supposed to be a message of hope to not only the Korean people, but also in a global sense, just having that hope taking root in that green seedling aspect and just kind of growing from that. I think it's a beautiful image that is trying to be portrayed in this song, too.
Okay, so it wasn't just about celebrities, but there were artists that were involved in this, too.
In this case, we're talking about the artists that are going to perform, well, today and tomorrow in many ways, too. So we did mention, opera singer Jo Soo-mi. She will be performing 3 songs today, along with In Suni as well, too, but not together. Jo Soo-mi will be performing a few operatic songs, obviously. One of them being Nella Fantasia, the other one is Ave Maria, and then finally La Fantasia. And then we have In Suni performing more modern hits, which are like A Goose Dream, Umbrella, and My Friend. And so all songs that have a similar theme, just that kind of unification idea.
Gosh, that has to be such an honor.
Oh, last but not least, tomorrow for the beatification ceremony, ahead of it, we have pianist Baek Gun-woo. He'll be performing as Pope Francis, named after St. Francis of Assisi. The Assisi Preaching to the Birds performance will be done at Gwanghwamun Square ahead of the beatification ceremony.
That's right.
And another event I found interesting was that singer Boa. She'll be having a luncheon with the Pope this afternoon.
So jealous. I'd kill to eat with the Pope. Right?
Exactly.
You probably shouldn't, but.
But basically, for the 6th Asian Youth Day, in this sense, she is leading the youth procession as well as being an ambassador. So she is invited to the luncheon, which is later on for today in Daejeon. So yes, she will be there.
All right, well, sounds
So
great.
jealous.
All right, Denny, so thanks so much for the news.
No problem.
All right, we're going to get a look at what's hot in your K-pop charts, and then we'll be back with that feast that we're going to be preparing in the studio with Matthew.
Bibimbap.
I'll give it to you, girl.
All right, today is Liberation Day here in Korea. Matthew Chung joins us with a dish to liberate the palate, I would say, right? Good morning.
Good morning, and you're right, it is Liberation Day today. So what we wanted to do is take a Korean favorite, bibimbap, and we wanted to make it something, something to commemorate, this special day. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn one of our most beloved dishes into one of our most beloved symbols. But a little story behind bibimbap.
Yeah.
So why don't we take a look and see what makes this dish so special? Bibimbap has really put itself on the map these days as a traditional Korean dish that comes with extra health benefits. From global pop stars such as Michael Jackson to Hollywood super celebrities such as Bruce Willis, Hugh Jackman, and Gwyneth Paltrow, bibimbap is no ordinary dish.
I can never pronounce it right.
The tempura part or the bibimbap part?
The bibimbap part. This guy is really
And especially with Gwyneth Paltrow, a video introducing a how-to for the dish bibimbap was introduced, receiving more than enough attention from the public. It's not only that. In a hamburger contest in New York, the bibimbap burger won first place, a testament to its growing popularity worldwide. The first time bibimbap appeared in historical records was roughly 2 centuries ago. The belief is that it originated from the practice of mixing up leftovers from ancestral rites. And although it's a combination of so many different flavors, bibimbap still guarantees that each ingredient can shine and its flavor can come through. This way of combining ingredients with one another, bibimbap is a dish that can't be found in other countries like China or Japan, but only here in Korea. And more recently, the dish has evolved from the standard mixed rice with vegetables and chili paste to accompanying different tastes and generations.
All right, so we have all the ingredients laid out. One of the best things about bibimbap is you can never really go wrong with it.
It's true.
You can just put anything in it.
Absolutely, and as long as was it something seasonal, as long as all the ingredients go well together. The thing is that bibimbap, it has a ton of different ingredients in there, but they're all very simply prepared, so it makes it pretty foolproof.
All right.
So we're gonna do this together. We're gonna mucho our number. So like to mucho is to dress.
All right, so we'll do that. And this is where that sonmat comes from, right?
Exactly. Like sonmat, it literally translates to hand taste. And although I don't have any taste buds on my hand, what it means is that it's a sort of intuitive cooking.
All right.
Not using recipes, not going by measurements. Instead, cooking like your mama taught you.
Okay, so you're the boss, lead the way.
All right, so you have 콩나물 and I have 시금치. So those are bean sprouts. We got a little spinach, and we're going to first season it up with a little bit of sesame oil. So not too much because sesame oil is pretty fragrant. So
Same thing with this too?
Yep, go for it.
All right.
And then while you do that, I'm going to toss in a little bit of salt. Not too much, just because everything in bibimbap gets seasoned, so the effect is cumulative, and I'm going to give you a little salt too.
All right. So basically, this is pretty simple, I think. My 7-year-old daughter can do this.
That's right, and that's the beauty of food like this. It keeps it simple. But when cooking simple food, that means everything has to be on point. The seasoning, all the different combinations. When things are simple, there's no place to hide.
All right.
All right.
So we have the sprouts.
Exactly, and this is the spinach, and essentially this is the same treatment that all of these things that we have up in front. All of our vegetables, we have mushrooms, we have a little bit of squash, zucchini, we have some carrot out there, we have some, fiddlehead fern, a little bit of bellflower root.
And this is basically the seasoning that you do, just sesame oil and the salt.
Yeah, sometimes you'll put in a little bit of soy sauce in there, but and for if you want one that is a little bit more on the modern side, then you can add things, other aromatics, things like garlic, a little ginger. But really, yeah, go for it. And that's the important thing is that you have to always taste your food, make sure that it's seasoned well.
Okay, so how do we make this go?
All right, so what we have here, we have a pan. On the bottom, we have all of our vegetables down there. So if you look closely, you can see some of it poking out. But it's all topped with the rice, and then we've outlined the shape of the Korean flag with sesame seeds.
So we don't have to make this, you already have this done, right?
That's right, so what we're gonna do is we're just gonna fill in the gaps. So give you another glove.
Maybe I shouldn't have taken my original one off.
So what I'm going to have you do is fill in the top part of the taegu, the center part of the flag, and the top part is red, and we're going to go with carrot just because that's a very common a vegetable that you find in bibimbap. So why don't you start by filling that area in
with carrots? I'm not very good at this.
That's fine. What is it?
Spill things over.
And then I'm going to fill in the trigrams on the sides with a little bit of beef that's been seasoned very simply with a little bit of soy sauce, just a touch of sugar, a little salt, and a little bit of sesame oil.
Okay, because of the time constraints, I think we're going to have to go ahead and do it a little bit as soon as possible. It's not going to look as pretty, but if we had more time, I think it would look great.
So while I'm doing this, you can fill in the bottom part with a little bit of spinach.
All right.
And that's going to represent the blue. And just because we don't have any actual blue food available, we're going with green.
And artificial coloring is not recommended.
Absolutely not. Not on a day like this. This is a day of celebration. So we're just going to quickly put this together. You know what? Yeah, you're pretty good at this.
There you go.
It looks like you might have a little bit of banquet experience.
Well, you know what? If I ever get fired, then I'll look to you.
All right, so we're almost done. So we're just gonna fill in just the rest of this. And the great thing about bibimbap too is that it's not a dish that's meant to be served piping hot. In fact, what is it? A lot of these flavors, the longer they sit, the more they'll meld, and the flavors will continue to develop. You don't want to, of course, to let it sit too long.
Yeah.
But it's a dish that holds very well. So if you're looking for a creative picnic idea, what you can do is you can pack all of the different ingredients separately, and then put it together once you get there.
All right, so we have it ready. This is ready. We're going to toss it over to you guys and then carry it over there. How's that?
Sounds good.
Well, bring that taegeuk over here, please.
I think we're going to have to run there right now.
Wow. We're excited.
But where did we put the chili paste? We put it on top of
I
the
think it's on the
taegeuk?
bottom already, the chili, the gochujang
Everything,
paste.
all the seasoning, and it's all ready. It's all ready to go down
this
there.
is a first time experience for me. I'm a taegeuk, it's a new experience. Yeah, definitely. Wow, this is what neat.
Where do we start?
Bibimbap right here.
Just go ahead and PBR.
Shall we? Can we wreck it?
Yes, go
All right.
ahead.
We have no time. We're just going to go ahead. Junju, help me out here. What you doing?
Everything is really in there.
Wow. This is, the kids will love something like this, and just, make it and just PBR it. Just
The thing about this is that it's Korean inside and out, like through and through.
And then if you like if you want it spicier, just add a little more.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Matthew and Young, for your input.
I didn't really do much.
Hey, that was great. I mean, we wouldn't have been able to create this without jumping in together. And on a day like this, things that bring people together, whether it be was a symbol such as a flag or the food that that we created in the form of it. It's a day that brings people together.
Right, 대한독립 만세 right here. All right, well, thank you, Matthew, for your wonderful dish today.
Always a pleasure.
And that's our breakfast.
All right, well, that's just about does it for this edition of Korea Today. Tomorrow is an exciting day also.
Right, we have the beatification ceremony of Pope Francis, so stay tuned with Arirang because we'll be having a live coverage of it tomorrow. Thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.